Jason Oxman is the CEO of the ETA, and many of you I know are familiar with Jason. I have admired his work for many years. I was mentioning to him earlier, I remember he had a very notable keynote to this audience maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And so it's great. Thank you very much for being back with us today, Jason. We always appreciate your comments.
Thanks, Tommy. It's great to be here.
Thanks.
And enjoyed your remarks very much. I'll invite my panel to come up and join us here on stage, and I'll introduce you to them as they come up, unless they decide that they now regret their decision to agree to speak here and decide not to come up, in which case we'll talk about the Super Bowl for the next 40 minutes, because that seems like a good topic here. We're here to talk about the effort, which is, I think, incredibly important to everybody in this room, that this is a very weird place to put this. I think I'll stand up here because half of you can't see me. We're going to talk about the effort that Georgia and Atlanta specifically are making to become a FinTech hub. And of course, you all know the statistics about the success that Atlanta has had in being a payments hub. The payments industry essentially is headquartered here in Atlanta. You've all heard the statistic that something in the nature of 70% of the nation's payments transactions flow through Georgia. And a large part of that is because the nation's largest processors are headquartered here. You know that the payments industry employs more than 40,000 people throughout the state of Georgia, most of whom are close to Metro Atlanta. And of course, you know that this is a $34 billion industry here. It probably won't surprise you that of the 525 members of ETA, I should have mentioned, is the Electronic Transactions Association. Hopefully many of you are familiar with us, and even more of you are members of ETA. We have 525 member companies. 50 of them are either headquartered or have their largest base of operations here in Georgia. It's the largest group across the ETA membership. So we know that we've done very well in making Atlanta a hub of the payments industry. But as Tommy alluded to, the future of our industry is FinTech. And FinTech means different things to different people. But it's important for us to take a look at everything we're doing here in Georgia and everything Atlanta is doing, and what we can do more to make Atlanta into a FinTech hub. We hear Atlanta talked about in the context of FinTech in competition, really, with New York and California. And of course, if you looked at nationwide FinTech opportunities, Georgia is currently ranked third in FinTech operations. New York and California are first and second. So the expert panel that we have arrayed before you today is going to talk about what we're doing here in Atlanta, what's going well, what we can do more to encourage the FinTech scene. I'll start off by introducing all the way on my far left, Barry McCarthy, who is the Executive Vice President of Network and Security Solutions at First Data, which of course is not only the nation's largest processor, but probably the nation's largest FinTech company as well. Barry oversees a huge number of business units that is too long for me to list, ranging from their very successful debit network to prepaid business to mobile and technology and much more, and we're thrilled to have Barry here. Guy Harris is the president of North America for Elavon. Elavon, of course, one of the nation's largest processors as well. Guy is headquartered here, and I'm also very pleased to have Guy as one of the members of the board of directors of ETA. So Guy, welcome as well. Scott Meyerhoff is the CFO and COO. Started off as a CFO, then became COO, I guess, of InComm, and we are thrilled to have Scott here as well. And Bob Legters is the Chief Product Officer of FIS. So welcome to all of you. We're going to talk here about making Atlanta into Transaction Alley and how we're doing on that effort. The first question I want to ask everybody to address, and I think this is an important one for the audience because everyone here is either involved in the process of turning Atlanta into a FinTech hub or is a decision maker interested in it. Let's talk about what's happening right now to make Atlanta a FinTech hub. And I'd like to ask each of you, and Barry, I'll start down with you. Tell us one thing that you think Atlanta and Georgia are doing well toward a goal of turning this metropolitan area into a FinTech hub. What's one thing that's going well? And secondly, what's something that could be going better? So a good thing and a thing that needs some improvement toward the goal of turning Atlanta into a FinTech hub. Barry, we'll start with you.
So aside from all the sort of what I would consider the natural advantages of Atlanta, meaning our region, the airport, university systems, I think the state has done a remarkable job of creating an environment and a climate that is very friendly not only to business, but FinTech in particular, and are very friendly towards our industry and looking to do more to help us. So I think we've got a great climate for business with low taxes, reasonable regulation, and I think that makes for a great climate here. I think one of the big things that we could work on to do better is we have an incredible university system here, and they do a great job of preparing people for general careers in technology or general careers in business. But I think we could help those universities help us more by targeting curriculum to have more FinTech-ready talent available. I think it's a big issue in our state that there's data that suggests that there are multiple open jobs available in our state for every job seeker that's here, which means we are a net importer of FinTech talent. So if we can grow more of our own FinTech talent here, we'll be in a better spot over the long term.
Guy, what's your thing that's good and thing that could be better?
I think the thing that's good here in Atlanta is the fact we are a hub. So as a processor and an acquirer, the talent part of the equation is really important. So we see benefits of having capability that sits here in Atlanta both from a recruiting perspective and from an educational perspective. And so that allows us to attract really good people, and therefore it improves our overall capability. So I think Atlanta's done a great job. I think that's what we're on the journey of improving that to make sure that we continue to start to bring more companies, and in the FinTech space in particular, innovation that helps us to grow this region. So I think we've done a great job, or Atlanta's done a great job in doing that. I think from my perspective, what they could do better, they could help us with regulation. I have a slightly different view on regulation because I work for a bank. And anything that the state or the government can do to help ensure that regulation assists us in our business but doesn't get in the way of us growing our business would be a big benefit. And we're hopeful with the new situation.
Scott?
One of the things that I think we've done well is create a concentration, create a hub of FinTech. I won't necessarily give the state of Georgia all the credit for that. I give you and your companies credit for that because for years it was here and nobody knew it. So one of my greatest benefits or strengths of what we've done is also one of our greatest weaknesses, which is nobody knew we were here. We were at a Chamber of Commerce meeting about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was talking about importing companies and growing the economic development of the city and the state. And it's great to try to import companies, but think about all the great companies that you work for here that are growing, and how do we support the companies, especially in the FinTech world, that are growing so quickly? How do we go ahead and help the companies that are going to grow 10 or 20,000 employees that are already here? It's a whole lot easier to grow companies that exist and support them than it is to import them. Now, by the same token of that, if we take the opportunity to preach what we have, when I go around the country and we talk to people in California, obviously they think they are FinTech. In New York, they think they are FinTech. But even if you talk to the media sources, and Barry's had some opportunities to speak in national publications, and I think generally people are surprised what we have, and they're surprised what you're doing. Now, everybody in this room, you know what you're doing each and every day. But when you leave Atlanta and you leave Georgia, the focus and the understanding of what we're doing in FinTech isn't as significant as it is right here. So again, one of the greatest strengths we have is you and the companies and the growth that we're creating. One of the greatest weaknesses we've had is we have not done a good enough job of speaking that, and that has many tangential benefits, including talent. How many Georgia Tech grads leave to go to Silicon Valley or Raleigh-Durham or Austin? What can we do to keep the talent we already have here, to excite them, to tell them these are cutting-edge companies creating the future of payments? Most of the graduates, when we started going ahead and recruiting at all the different university systems, they didn't understand what was here. So shame on us for not going ahead and getting on top of the building and screaming as loud as we can.
Bob, I hope nobody took your list of two.
Yeah, I'm like the guy that goes fourth
I
on
know,
the
it's-
Family Feud, so all the good answers are taken. So what they said, no, actually,
Survey says?
I agree completely. I think a couple of the good things that I'm starting to see happen in Atlanta are, I'm starting to see it become a career destination location. So pulling talent from those other markets like New York and California because of good cost of living, quality of life, convenience, a lot of the family benefits of the area are very good. So I think we've done a good job making the industry aware and the talent in the industry aware. We are losing those early innovators out of school and such because the press is, it's cool in California, right? The cool things are happening here, et cetera, in New York. And so we lose a lot of that. What I think could be better is, I think the city needs to be focused on the innovation in the FinTech space. I think of Atlanta as an area where all the cool companies deploy innovative products and cool solutions. I don't know that you feel that in the city. And having that technology there, when you're in some of those other places, California is probably the best example. You feel the innovation that's coming out of the companies because it's deployed locally first, and a lot of times tested locally first. I don't see as much of that in Atlanta as I think would benefit the city and make for greater press and announcements of how the public benefits from the companies that are here, because there's some amazing things happening.
Well, and Barry, if we can circle back to you, that's something that you're very heavily involved in. In fact, a new initiative, I think is a pretty exciting one called FinTech Atlanta that you're chairing, has been constituted in order to address exactly what Bob's talking about, how to bring the Atlanta innovation to the national stage. Can you tell us a little bit about FinTech Atlanta, this new group that you've constituted and agreed to run?
Absolutely. We've also got video. You tell me when you'd like to show it.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about FinTech Atlanta, and then I know you have an excitingly glossy and well-produced video to show us as well. So tell us about FinTech Atlanta and tell us what we're going to see.
So FinTech Atlanta was an initiative sponsored by the governor, put together between the Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce, our own Technology Association of Georgia, TAG, and a group called the American Transaction Processor Coalition, or ATPC. And the goal of FinTech Atlanta is to be a group that pulls together all of the assets in our community that target and support FinTech. It's not intending to duplicate anything. For example, there's no intention to have events like this, but instead to tie these together and have a common voice and common message, not only in the capital, but around the globe in promoting the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta as the real new home for FinTech globally. And we've gotten off to a great start. We have a number of companies that are partners with us in addition to the associations we talked about. And you'll be hearing, I think, lots more in the coming weeks and months about what we're doing collectively as an industry around FinTech for the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta.
All right, you want to show us a video to
Sure.
introduce us to FinTech Atlanta?
Great.
All right, let's go ahead.
Hello, I'm Barry McCarthy, and I have the privilege of serving as the chairman of a new statewide initiative called FinTech Atlanta. FinTech Atlanta was formed by the Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce, the Technology Association of Georgia, known as TAG, and the American Transaction Processor Coalition, or ATPC. The vision for FinTech Atlanta is to pull together the many assets across our community to have an integrated message about how important FinTech is in Atlanta and to the state of Georgia. Importantly, you may not even be aware, Atlanta has already become the global capital of financial technology. And the governor's here to tell you a little bit about his perspective on the importance of FinTech to the state of Georgia.
70% of all U.S. credit, debit, and gift card transactions are processed by Georgia companies every day. That means trillions of dollars are handled safely and efficiently by Georgia companies each year. And these payment companies employ more than 40,000 Georgian citizens in some great paying jobs. It is because of vital industries like yours that Georgia is on the move and continues to be designated as the #1 state in the nation in which to do business.
I'm sure you appreciated as much as I did the opportunity to hear from the governor and his commitment to FinTech for Atlanta and the state of Georgia. I thought it might be helpful to give you just a thumbnail sketch about how we got here and how quietly we've already become the FinTech capital of the world.
One question I wanted to ask the group, and Guy, I'll move down to you, is, and Barry alluded to this, is the ability to hire people in Atlanta, coming out of the university system, out of Georgia Tech, out of the University of Georgia, and other local schools that have an interest in FinTech, have an interest in startup entrepreneurship even, interest in technology, but that may have been indoctrinated into the idea that they have to go out to Silicon Valley to get that done. So Guy, can you talk to us a little bit about work we need to do in that area to encourage local students coming out of the university system to stay here and apply their technology savvy and entrepreneurial skills in the payments industry, which they may see as kind of stodgy and not as interesting and exciting as Silicon Valley or even New York might be?
Well, I guess from Elavon's perspective, we looked at it the other way around, is what do we have to do to attract that talent, and where do we go for that? So we employ about 650 people here in the Atlanta region. But when we were looking at setting up our innovation center, which was where we were going to look at our technology, new technology and innovation, we decided that, when we looked around the whole of the US, we decided this was the best place. So we set up our Grove that sits within our organization. And it's an incubator for developing new products and capability here in America. And when staffing that, we then looked at how we could attract, and in fact, even in our own office, I'm not allowed into the Grove because I'm too old, and there's a sort of a restriction. But we looked at how we would make it a different environment, so even as you go into the Grove, it's a different look and feel to the rest of the organization. And then we've gone and recruited from the college systems within Atlanta. And so it's been our job to go out and get them to connect with us at an early stage through the colleges to see that there is a cool way of carrying on your career here in Atlanta. You don't have to travel and have all the things that come with going to California. And we've seen that. We've got over 100 people in there. It's a fantastic environment, and we've seen really great solutions and new innovation coming out of that. And we'll continue to invest here in Atlanta and expand that, rather than setting ourselves up around the rest of the US.
Scott, do you find that when you're trying to recruit new people to the InComm team here in Atlanta, that you have to compete with this kind of notion that it's sunnier out in California, and that's the place to go if you really want to get into FinTech, and how do you convince people to come work for a payments company?
We've actually taken a little bit different of an approach to create an innovative intern program. Our thought process is if we capture them earlier, give them an opportunity to be indoctrinated to many facets of a company. They'll know where the bathrooms are. They'll know, they'll know where the cafeteria is, kind of thing. But they'll learn what goes on. And if we can go ahead and capture them and capture that innovative spirit through an intern program, we feel like we've got a much better opportunity to change their mindset earlier. We've done this with a number of the universities in the broader Atlanta area with great success. We've gotten great accolades. Our teams that have run that in the IT world, as well as through our leadership teams on education within our company, have really done an excellent job of differentiating ourselves. So that's an important facet. One of the other things, though, to point out is we don't just hire tech people. All the companies here, it's not the talent of, I just need to go to the IT groups, because when you see a gift card rack and all the art and depictions on the cards, we design the cards. So we use graphic designers and people from SCAD and other universities. We have management, we have merchandising, we have production and procurement and warehouse and fulfillment. We'll ship almost 1 billion physical pieces of plastic cards this year. So we have warehouses all around the place. So really, the support infrastructure, again, is not just the technology assets, but it really runs deep and wide into other facets of recruiting.
Bob, FIS has offices around the world, and you obviously have a big presence here in Atlanta as well. How do you think the university system's doing? How are you finding the talent pool? And what's the story you have to tell people to encourage them to stay here in Atlanta?
Yeah, the intern program, I think, is the key, and Scott made some great points. Our intern program is very diverse around the idea of the entire career, not necessarily being an IT-only function. And so we attract them, quite honestly, through the intern program, and we get a lot of transplant from other college systems into the Atlanta area. So we have about a 65% roll rate on our interns, of interns who come into the program, they spend a semester or two, and then turn into a permanent employment opportunity. And so the harder part about what we do a lot is that it's hard to, we don't have part-timers or seasonal employees or those type of things in most of the career-oriented roles. But we've had a lot of success getting people either to transplant from the Northeast into the Atlanta area through an intern program. And a lot of that attraction comes from giving them a view into the corporation and the possibility to achieve things. So when the interns come in, they're not getting coffee and running those. They're participating in projects that they can almost see the finish line for. And then the career opportunity is their chance to get in and participate in finishing that out.
That's great. Speaking of coming out of the university system, Barry, you can actually major in FinTech now. Tell us about that. How did that come about, and what do you think that means for educating people and encouraging them to stay here?
So one of the things that our industry collectively has been doing is advocating for the notion of FinTech education. And with great partnership from the University Board of Regents that covers all of the state system of Georgia, working on a curriculum to lead to a degree where a young person could graduate from high school, go to the University of Georgia system, and graduate with a concentration in FinTech. Ultimately, in addition with the notion of internships, if we can start talking to high school students who then go to college, that become summer interns, that then become employees of our industry, we think we can really fulfill and sort of complete that circle. That's not going to prevent us from needing to import more talent from around the country and around the globe, but that will be certainly a big part of that by even being able to take more of our own young people and employ them in our industry. The biggest challenge there is I think most young people, probably like most of our neighbors, just have no idea what this industry is, because in many ways it just happens. It's the infrastructure that happens behind the scenes, and they may not even be aware it's here, whether that's payments or just FinTech in general. So we have a job to do to raise awareness an understanding of all the really cool things that we're doing that makes all of this world of commerce come to pass.
You know, that's a great point, and we obviously experience that at ETA. We have all the companies represented on this stage are members and have been for a very long time. But then we have Apple and Google and Samsung and Intel and Microsoft and Verizon as member companies as well. And people say, oh, that's the payments industry? Apple is a payments company? Well, of course it is. And that is the story that we have to tell, because people look at the payments industry, as you say, and think, oh, that's just the back office. That's the infrastructure. And Guy, I wanted to ask you about that, because I think one of the interesting things about Tommy's presentation was the data on mobile payments usage, for example. He said their research showed 0% increase in mobile payments usage. So I wanted to ask you, kind of your thoughts on the technology side of things, particularly here in Atlanta. If you were advising a startup in the room, where to focus your efforts? Where are the opportunities in technology? Would it be mobile payments? Were you surprised by that stat? Where do you see opportunities for startup and FinTech activity here in Atlanta?
Well, the first comment, I think it's quite an interesting statement. It's suddenly it's cool to be in payments. It used to not be that cool, but we're suddenly a cool industry, and that's great for us. And one of the reasons is the FinTech space, because when we look at technology and the speed of change, there's a huge amount of disruption taking place. So as one of the big processes, Elavon, the big top four, our challenge is that we have to be able to react to the change at the pace of change. And as we see that pace, whether it be standard EMV, the chip card coming through to contactless to mobile, it's deciding which technologies, which partnerships that you can work with to accelerate that speed to get your customers to where they want to be. On the overall subject of, mobile remains a hot topic, and I always look at these things from a personal perspective. I start on how do I feel as a customer, and then what does that mean from our customer's perspective. And what I do know is that in the US in particular, and you probably hear from my accent, I originally came from England, where the whole contactless concept of payments is really taking off at a faster pace. But as we look here at the landscape here in the US, the challenge I see as the single largest challenge is, first and foremost, contactless isn't in our DNA. Yes, we've deployed technology that allows us to do that, but ultimately we don't have cards that can use and make tap and go. But any of you who've used your mobile phone to make a payment, and I'm one of those, although it's saying it's only 0%, I think it's probably going a bit faster than that. But when you actually do it, it's a great customer experience. It's actually easy. It's much more intuitive. The challenge I see as a user is I don't know where I can use it. So as I approach to pay for things, if I'm getting my phone out, I get asked often, when I ask, do you take Apple Pay, they say, do you want an apple pie? and that seriously has happened a couple of times. I think it's probably my accent. So the whole education of our market is a challenge, and it's something that we need to work on. So you've got the technology. Now the technology is here. It's available. Now our challenge as an industry is how do we get that technology out so that customers can take advantage of it.
Scott, I'm interested in your perspective, particularly in the prepaid space where InComm is such a major player. This is obviously these devices. I have to carry multiple devices because we love all of our members equally. These devices are great technology advancement for the InComm business. But I'm curious, what are you most excited about as far as FinTech technology activity here in Atlanta? In particular, if you were advising a startup, here's an area that I think is going to be hot in the next couple of years. This is what you should be doing. What do you like out there?
A couple things as an intro to what Guy said as far as thinking about how you would use payments, I think is very, very important and a very appropriate start point. But we also need to acknowledge that nobody in this room is normal. We're not the average American. We don't go ahead and pump $14 of gas each time when we go to fill up our car. We don't live paycheck to paycheck. When we think about credit cards, we think about what loyalty or incentive or rewards we'll get on it, not can we even get one, and not can we even process anything. So at InComm, we first think about the masses and how does the average American, and how do they think and how are they going to use the product, because that's the masses. Again, nobody in this room is normal. So let's just start with that. The other thing I will add to that is that we, as humans, are creatures of habit. If we're going to change our habits, we need to be incented. We need to be prodded. We need to be convinced to do something different because we have a routine. So to convince you to use mobile payments, what do I give you? How can I convince you? Because there's a small subset that are going to be the leaders that are, wanting to do whatever is cool and cutting edge. But the vast majority of us live in our daily average life. And it brings back a story where the Target companies, years ago, there was a gentleman that walked into Target and he said, "Why are you sending my daughter things about pregnancy? She's 18 years old, I can't believe you're doing that," and grabbed the store manager and complained. And then he came back 2 days later and he said, "There's something going on here. You knew my daughter was pregnant before I did. How did you know?" And they were using data. But Target looks at it as pregnancy is one of the times in a person's life to change their buying habits and what they do and where they do it. So again, if I look at payments, a lot of what we do is back of store. A lot of what we do, it works, and the only time you know who we are is when it doesn't work. We don't have a ton of customer-facing applications in Atlanta. But what I look at is, from an entrepreneurial perspective, is offering products, services, solutions, or technologies that will offer something to change the behavior, analogous to bill payment with the internet way back. What's the killer application? What's the thing to give a consumer something to change their habits? And whether that's making them mainstream and they can go online and transact just like you can, or go do an Uber. I mean, think of all the things that a consumer can do with a bugged card, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Amex, et cetera, versus the people that are unbanked or underbanked or choose not to be banked. And how do you keep them relevant in society and give them an equal playing field to transact and live? Because it certainly is not inexpensive to be poor.
Bob, you own product at FIS, so you're providing advice to a FinTech startup here in Atlanta. Where do you see the most excitement, the most activity, the most opportunity? Where do you want to see the Atlanta FinTech startup scene focusing on developing new technologies?
Well, I would start by saying I see the most waste in people who think they have a great idea if they can get everyone to adapt to their concept. And that's, kind of going back to the idea of start backwards from the consumer experience. You're not going to change your habit unless you have an incentive to change, or unless the change creates a level of convenience, right? And that's really what you say, when I like to start a mobile company, mobile's just a channel. And the idea of that channel making convenience available for the consumer is its power. If it doesn't make it convenient, which goes to ubiquity to payments, if it makes it confusing, the confused mind always says no. And so if I don't know if it's going to work there, I go back to, we spent 25 years teaching people how to swipe a credit card, right? Teaching them how quick it can happen, and we made it really fast, and we got authorizations down to sub-second. And so where's the advantage for the consumer in changing the way that they pay if there's no incentive? So when we talk to the startups, a lot of times they have a great idea, but you spend so much time teaching people how to accomplish your idea, your process, your innovation, that they lose the concept of incentive and convenience. And if there's no incentive and there's no convenience, the consumer is not going to change the way that they do things. So we focus a lot on going backwards from that. And even though we're behind the scenes and we don't have a lot of consumer facing, we have to go past our customer to the consumer to give them a solution that works. I think payments is cool now because we're solving the problem on behalf of, we used to provide tools to our clients, and the tool they would turn it into the product for the consumer. We have to kind of take it the next step and partner with them to do that. Anybody who's starting up, if you start that conversation with, if you do this, it'll be better, getting over that adoption curve and that hump is huge.
Barry, I want to get your thoughts on this. You've been with payments since it was not cool. I think you're maybe
it was
one of
always
the,
cool.
Yeah, you were always cool. Yes, to be clear. Sorry.
Right, I think so.
What do you say?
Barry's old.
But well, you are. I think this is something to celebrate. I think you are one of the longest serving senior team members at First Data. So you've been there a long time, since before First Data was a technology company. How about that?
There you go.
When I first started at ETA about 5 years ago, I was trying to expand our activities into Silicon Valley. I went and visited a tiny little company that was working out of literally an apartment in downtown Santa Clara, they were. 7 people, they had a pool table, they had empty pizza boxes, they were working on Samsung tablets at the time, trying to figure out how to get into the business. They joined ETA to try to make connections and learn about the industry. And today, you see them everywhere because that little company is called Clover, and you picked them up. Talk to us about how First Data has made that transformation from being a decades-old payments company to being a technology company, and what you'd suggest to startups here in Atlanta that they focus on to be the next acquisition target of First Data, which is everybody's dream.
So I think 2 parts. That's a big question, but sort of 2-part answer. The first part is that what First Data has really tried to do as we've grown and expanded and really tried to become something more than just a payments provider, we've really looked to the ecosystem and the innovators that are out there to see what technologies and what platforms and what ideas that someone else has already started to build, that using our distribution channel, we could accelerate their success. And so Clover is a great example of that, where we sell hundreds of thousands of new merchants every year. We have millions on our systems, and all of them need platforms to operate their business. And Clover, what represented sort of a shortcut for us to accelerate what we thought the ultimate vision and end state would be for payments, especially for small businesses, with a really integrated solution with an app store so you could download apps and customize your point of sale experience. And so by acquiring Clover, we were able to sort of jumpstart to the future, and Clover was able to benefit by leveraging the great distribution that First Data had. But the side benefit, and it's not really the side benefit, is that when we inject sort of that new thinking of the Silicon Valley into the more mature, perhaps more slower First Data, it really helps to transform the culture and how the rest of the company thinks. So Clover is just one acquisition, but there have been a number of others, Transaction Wireless, the gift app company, Perka, there's been a number of them, and they've done a couple of things for us, help us accelerate our own plans for our growth, but also inject new DNA into our organization. So I think the biggest thing that a company like First Data, and I'm sure all of these companies would say something similar, is and I think you said it well, which is it's hard to imagine that the entire ecosystem is going to change to adopt a new technology or a new methodology. Companies that are successful and the companies that we have acquired have been businesses that understood sort of the trajectory and where the ecosystem was moving and put their company in the pathway of that growth. And so as that natural progression happened, they were in the roadway and on the pathway to that future state. And it was a really logical thing for us to acquire those companies because it was just another further step down the path. Initiatives that represent some radical transformation or a left-hand turn or require substantial sort of overall transformation, some of those work for sure, but those are more rare. The ones that are on the pathway to where the ecosystem's already heading are the ones that certainly get our attention.
Great. One last thought from our panel, and I'll start down here. Bob, give you the opportunity to ensure nobody steals yours this time. I'd like you to leave our audience with your one thing that you're most excited about for 2017. We're still in the early days of the year. A lot of transformation in our industry, in your individual companies, in the country as a whole. What's the one thing that you're most excited about for 2017? It can be specific to Atlanta, or you can be more global if you want, but let's leave our audience with your excitement for the year.
Yeah, I'll be specific to Atlanta for the sake of the conference because there's a ton to be excited about. For Atlanta, the thing that I'm excited the most about is we've done a lot to expand strategy and innovation team here and bring in some talent, and I'm excited that they have about 5 or 6 products that they're going to deploy in the Atlanta area. And for me, it's all around the digital payments experience, so a lot of the mobile stuff and a lot of convenience. So I'm excited that I think it's a good time for that. The market has moved past some of the big challenges of the last couple of years, EMV migrations and regulatory and the ATM nightmares of the last few years, and now we can start getting into fun product. And so it's an exciting time.
Great. Scott, what's your excitement for the year?
As it relates to InComm, loyalty and rewards at the point of sale through data on cards, So it'll be an immediacy of the discount. If you're an AARP member or any other affinity group, will have the data on the card. You swipe it, all the CPG offers and incentives and rewards will be immediately discounted from the product at the swipe. With that technology, we also do healthcare payments and other things that are restricted to certain items. So, even going so far as FEMA and other types of disaster payments, very simply, it's restrictions at the point of sale through our technology at InComm.
Guy?
I think quite simply growth. What's exciting to be here in Atlanta in the payment space, which we've just described, is this industry grows. And so as you set out in the year, you've got anywhere between 7 to 9% growth in the market. So you're sitting in a market that is vibrant and growing. Your challenge is taking market share within that market. But from an Atlanta perspective, that means we've got great opportunities. And as a result of that, we're growing and recruiting more people. So couldn't be a better place to be from a payments perspective to be here in Atlanta.
Fantastic. And Barry, you get the last word
You
to
stole
send us
my
off.
point, but I think we are in an incredible, not only just a growth industry, but this particular year, I think, is an inflection point in growth overall on a number of fronts. As consumers continue to change their mix of the payments that they use, whether it's mobile payments, prepaid, alternate mechanisms, that is starting to get some traction this year, which represents growth. And our company is very much, hopefully, well positioned to take advantage of that. I think going forward, the rest of this year, from an Atlanta perspective, I think this notion of FinTech Atlanta really getting air under its wings and taking off, and a partnership that's emerging between Atlanta and London, I think will have significant impact in raising awareness of what we are and what is special about Atlanta on the global stage. And that will be, I think, a great benefit to all of us.
Terrific. I look forward to seeing many of you at our Transact event in May in Las Vegas. Congratulations to TAG and specifically to Andrew and Nicole for a phenomenal event here today. Please join me in thanking our terrific panel, and thanks for the opportunity to be here.